Good Thursday afternoon to you. It's 4 o'clock and time for Sports4CLE. Thanks for joining us. Browns back on the field at the Greenbrier in West Virginia during training camp. No pads on yet, but they were getting after it. Some work getting in. And in red zone, at least, the defense has been better than the offense. But here, Deshaun Watson finds Harrison Bryant. 11-on-11 drills. This one from a 7-on-7. It's Watson to Donovan Peoples-Jones. Really nice catch. Take a look at this one. Again, 7-on-7, Watson leaves the pocket, scrambling down the sidelines, and he finds Cedric Tillman trying to get that scramble drill underway. Here's Elijah Moore in the middle of the field. You'll probably see plenty of that. Take a look at this red zone drill, 7-on-7. Great move by Moore on Denzel Ward for the touchdown. Good hands. Some defensive individual drills. Maurice Hurst, if he can stay healthy, he could be a factor. Za'Darius Smith, Myles Garrett getting after it with the defensive line drills. Some news and notes of the day. Anthony Schwartz practices for the first time, missed the first 4 days with a hamstring injury, back on the field. David Njoku resting here, not believed to be anything serious. Amari Cooper out a few more days with a minor tweak, was not to that core muscle injury. And then Matt Adams, who was brought in, he's a linebacker who was brought in as a special teams standout. He is out a few weeks with a calf injury. So certainly hope he gets back. They brought him in specifically to help out on the special teams unit. Let's welcome in Quincy Carrier from Untitled, Unfiltered Browns coverage. Quincy, red zone, the defense has been ahead of the offense the last couple of days. It's not a big deal. People are all concerned. They're not in pads yet. And you're not running the football in the red zone. So it's a good sign that the defense is playing well.
Yeah, I mean, you want to see the defense play well. I think we're like so focused on this Deshaun Watson thing that we're forgetting that Deshaun Watson is not the only person that's going to be playing football for this team. So it's not bad news if you hear that the defense is also making plays. What you want to see in these situations and then in these, like, with this kind of a team is that both sides are making plays. And that's what we've seen so far. You know, I think we're so caught up into what it used to be here in Cleveland, which was we didn't have any playmakers. A play being made in camp would be rare, that whenever anybody makes a play, we assume it's because somebody else stinks. But it's like, no, man, sometimes good teams can make plays on each other and they could trade blows, right? We've seen great games where defense isn't bad, but the score is 35-22-27 or something like that, because just both sides are just trading blows. This is what it is. This is what good football looks like. And everything that I've seen from Browns camp so far looks like good football.
So the pads come on in the next couple of days, and they'll actually get some work. That's when we'll see some of that line. Do you ever wonder what Kevin Stefanski is saying to his team when he gathers them at the end of a practice? Wonder no longer. He is mic'd up. This is from Browns Twitter.
Talked about stacking days, right? We got to stack days no matter what that day is. Ford talked about doing the little things right. Whatever that thing is in front of you guys, we got to stack that day, okay? So today, great work of locking in out here. And then we're in those meetings, we got to be locked in. We're not wasting one day as we stack these things, okay? A little bit of work, right? That was a little bit of work. Is anybody afraid of a little work? Is anybody afraid of a little extra work? Okay, so when you come out here, or when practice ends, are you afraid of a little extra work? What can you do before you leave this field? I've said this before, and it's the truth. The first guy on the field and the last guy to leave the field has never been a bad player in the history of football, okay? So have that mentality that I'm going to do extra, whether it's before, whether it's after these meetings, whether it's working on my body, I'm going to do extra because that's what it takes, all right? Team on three. 1, 2, 3.
Quincy, you talk about stacking days. He wants consistency and he wants effort. That's basically what he's telling them.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically like we've heard this speech before. This is pretty normal coach speech. We want days to be stacked, want things to happen, want guys to be there early and be there late. For a lot of people who want the cliches, and that's the reason they don't like Kevin Stefanski, he just gave you all the cliches right there. That should clear out half the caller list right there.
Yeah, you know what? What's he going to say? I found this really interesting. Anthony Walker met with the media today after practice, talked about this year's defense and playing for Jim Schwartz. Listen to what he had to say.
I think it's coaching to your player's strength, and we have obviously we have a very unique set of DBs, all sizes, speeds that can cover pretty much everybody. Obviously, you got the monsters on the edge, the pass rush that gets there, being able to stop the run. I think we have all the pieces, and I think, like you said, what makes him unique is he plays to our strengths, and then he lets us take the reins. You know, he tells us what he wants, and he lets us go out there and do it instead of, trying to micromanage. So I think that's what you appreciate now as an older player, where, you kind of have the reins to kind of, control the show. And for me as a linebacker, that's what you want.
And again, the more you hear defenders talk, the more excited they get about playing in this system where it's much simpler.
Yeah, I mean, it's a change of pace for them, right? Last year's system, they felt like was too complicated. This year, it could be simple. Now, we could be complaining about simple, right? Like, this simple does not automatically mean better. I would caution people with that, because the situation in Baltimore is kind of the exact opposite when it comes to their offensive side, where Greg Roman was simple, and now they want to get away from simple, right? Because they felt like simple was too easy to figure out. So, whether it's simple, whether it's complicated, I think we all just want a defense that works, that's functional. I don't even care if it's a great defense at this point, just be functional, because we just haven't had functional defenses for this run for whatever reason.
I think simple works when you have talent. I think, and I think this defense has more talent than they played to the last couple of years. I know you've addressed this on your show. I'm curious as to how close do you think the Browns are to being Super Bowl contenders?
They're a quarterback away, right? Like they're elite quarterback play away. If they get quarterback play on par with Joe Burrow, on par with Josh Allen, on par with what Justin Herbert's the guy we're throwing up there now. If they get quarterback play on par with that, then they're going to be fine. They're going to be Super Bowl contenders. If they don't get quarterback play on par to that level, then they're going to be either like a decent 11-win team that's not really a threat, or if they get worse quarterback play than that, then they're just going to be bad. But that's where this team is. They've been in the same spot for a very long time. You look at this team, 2018, 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022. We've been talking about this roster being ready to win for all 5 of those years. And it's not because anybody is lying about those rosters. It's because the truth is that the roster's been good for that long. It's just quarterback's been a question mark, right? You go to 2018, it's rookie Baker Mayfield. You go to 2019, we don't know which version of Baker Mayfield from his rookie year we're going to get. You go to 2020, we get a decent year out of Baker Mayfield. We go 11-5, and then have one of the best years in expansion history. Then 2021, big question mark out of Baker Mayfield. 2022, we're starting 2 quarterbacks for the season. Huge question marks at quarterback. And then the one quarterback we're bringing back from 700 days. The Browns holdup has not been what's around the quarterback position. Yes, there are flaws. Yes, there are holes here. We can nitpick there and there and point at these things. But the truth is if there is elite quarterback play, it's not going to matter that we don't think the defensive tackle depth is great. It's not going to matter that you don't love the linebackers right now, because elite quarterback play is it's so much more overwhelming in the good category for your hopes to be a great team that, if you just get that, then you're going to be fine. So that's why they paid Deshaun Watson that money. That's why they made the move that they did. That's why, from a football standpoint, it makes sense, because he's the one quarterback you could get your hands on that gets you the best chance of having quarterback play at that level. If he delivers, then we'll be one of those teams. If he doesn't, then we won't. That's really what it is.
So we have a developing story at Bengals training camp, as this is from Kelsey Conway, beat reporter for the Bengals, and that is Joe Burrow, who is being helped off of the field. So again, that's something that's just happening. So again, Quincy, we laugh and joke a lot about the Bengals. Certainly don't want to see anything happen to Joe Burrow or anybody to get hurt, but a concerning situation for an AFC North team. Think about what they're saying about the division and think about the Bengals if Joe Burrow misses time.
I mean, they're in the same situation as the Browns, right? They get that great quarterback play. They're going to be one of the better teams in the league. If they don't, then they're not. And that's really concerning with Joe. Now, I don't know how he got hurt. I would love to know more. I couldn't imagine it would be because of contact, right? Because, like, there's got to be a giant red flag around touching him, right? Especially in a non-padded practice.
That's
and
even
if that was
more
non-contact, then that's a little bit concerning.
Yeah, I'm with you.
So
we'll continue.
Hopefully, the medicals are the best for him, so he can be healthy and ready to play and compete for this season.
We'll continue to monitor that as we go on. Quincy Carrier and I are going to step aside, take a quick timeout. Other side of the break, we head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. Sports for CLE. We'll be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students, kindergarten through 12th grade, can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
We continue talking Browns with Quincy Carrier from Untitled, Unfiltered Browns coverage. Let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hello, my name is John, and I am a faithful viewer every day of the program. I have a question about the new defense. We're all excited about it being such a swarming and attack defense. However, does that make it more susceptible to draws and screens and quick passes? Are we vulnerable to those types of things where it can make them slow it down and then, maybe they're running upfield and we're darting behind them? Just want to know how vulnerable a Jim Schwartz defense is to screens and draws. Thank you.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. Quincy, is it? Yeah, a little bit. But what he'll do is he'll have guys at the line of scrimmage and drop them. So you really don't know where you're going to attack. You do those screens and quick hitters and draw plays, you could be running in to one of the guys that's coming.
Well, yeah, and the thing with, playing a lot, like only so many quarterbacks are going to be able to take advantage of what you do or do not do defensively. So that's also something that factors in. Every defense has its weaknesses, right? Zone has its own weaknesses, has its strength. Man has its weaknesses and has its strength. I think what people are kind of forgetting is that we're not exclusively running man, right? We're running both still, and we're running them both in situations to where they feel like they would probably be the most useful. That's why all defenses use both of them, so they can't be super exploitable. So to that caller's point, yeah, that could be a concern, but also know that Jim Schwartz isn't just going to exclusively run man, even when it's not advantageous. If he sees teams trying to do that, he's going to switch to some zone schemes. He's experienced. As part of why you have somebody that experienced back there, so you don't get caught off guard or exploited by something as simple as that.
Yeah, he knows plan B, C, D, E, F, G, H. He's run this system for quite a while, so he's got that down. Kevin Stefanski talked about having a number of cornerbacks who are good in man coverage.
Remains to be seen exactly. It's kind of like we talked about on offense. Now's the time to work it all and see what fits guys and what they're good at. But the more man players you have, the better, of course. So it's something that we'll continue to work and see where we are once the season starts.
And again, Quincy, you made the point. They're not going to play exclusively man, but they have a pretty good chance of being able to match up with pretty much anybody in the league. I mean, the Dolphins come to mind because of Waddle and Hill. They'd be a tough matchup. So you better have two guys that have, Olympic-type speed. Other than that, nobody, you've got the size in Emerson. Ward is good. Newsom's good.
Yeah, you have a luxury there at corner with all the good players that you have there, and that will allow them more options, right? And I think that's the thing we need to keep in mind. It's not that we're just going to go overpowered on one option. We have the talent, we have the players, so we have multiple options that we can go with. We have multiple guys that we can throw at a problem. So I think the versatility and having multiple different ways to win as a defense is going to be something that's going to be hugely beneficial to this team, because then it makes them a lot less predictable.
All right, this is NFL cornerback power rankings from Pro Football Network. And I think this is kind of a Wheel of Fortune ranking system. Sauce Gardner 1, Jalen Ramsey 2, Stephon Gilmore 3. I don't know, those are fine. They got Martin Emerson 25, Denzel Ward 29. I know he wasn't, elite necessarily last year because of how they had him playing. 29 is again, I think you're spinning the wheel and coming up with a ranking there. Do you think Ward is due for a huge bounce-back season? I know you've addressed this on your show.
He needs to have a bounce back, right? I think if you point to any of the major players that got paid last year, Denzel Ward's probably at the top of your list to be a little concerned about, because he had a dip of play, and he's always been kind of an inconsistent player, but the consistent inconsistency last year was a little concerning with him. Right now, you have to think that part of that was due to Joe Woods, but you can't be so naive to just blame it all on Joe Woods. So hopefully Denzel, took this offseason and the cover of people just blaming it on Joe Woods to kind of address some things within himself. I know he played most of the year hurt, so maybe that factored in to things as well. But Denzel, he's in need of a huge bounce back this year.
Can you tell me 28 cornerbacks should take ahead of him? I certainly cannot.
I'm shocked that they're still putting Jalen Ramsey at 2. That's one that even most people have caught up to not putting there. And Jonathan Jones, I don't even think that's the Patriots' best corner. I think their best corner is Jack Jones, but it's not my list.
Yeah, I'm with you. All right, we talked a little bit earlier about the developing story with Joe Burrow kind of being helped off practice. So we have video from out of Cincinnati on the play where it happened. And again, you see he's in the yellow jersey, non-contact. That would tell you, or the orange jersey rather. And there it is. That again, we're not gonna speculate. We're not gonna do any of that. But a non-contact, and that is not what you want to see from one of the elite quarterbacks in the NFL. So certainly hope it is not as bad as it looked, and that it's just kind of a tweak.
Hopefully it's just like a Charlie horse or a cramp or something like that. Something he can get back out there within the next day or two. But it's impossible to tell from that video
right.
what it is or isn't.
Right, and they're going to take it very cautiously, as they should with Joe Burrow. But again, helped off the field, so we'll see what that means. Before we go to break, 3 questions Browns must answer during training camp. This is from CBSSports.com. Number 1, is Deshaun Watson ready? Number 2, who is the real number 2 pass target? And number 3, does Jim Schwartz still have it? I guess that, the number 2 pass target, does it really matter who's number 2? I mean, they're going to have 5 or 6 guys that play quite a bit. Jim Schwartz, I guess that's a valid concern because he hasn't been a defensive coordinator down in the trenches in a couple of years. He's been an assistant. I'm just trying to rationalize one of these things.
I don't know what does it mean for a defensive coordinator to still have it? Do they age out? I don't know what the premise is. I saw Wade Phillips out there at 80 running defenses in the NFL in the Super Bowl, right, with the Rams.
And he was he was a defensive assistant with the Titans. It's not like he was playing checkers at the nursing home before they hired him.
Yeah, I mean, he had some medical issues in Philadelphia that led him to take a reduced role for a couple of years in his career. Now he feels like he's ready to be back on the sidelines. I don't know. Like, I feel like we are talking about Jim Schwartz as a player. Like, I feel like we're doing this a lot. Where it's like, does Jim Schwartz still has it? He's not playing linebacker, y'all. Like, I think he's fine. I think he's not coming back from an ACL injury. Like,
he seems to be bringing the energy to practice to me. From what we're seeing,
I would love to have that explained to me. Like, what does it mean for Jim Schwartz to have what? What is the it? I need to know the it. Like, what's the it in the it? I don't know.
Maybe it's in-game adjustments.
I've never heard of an injury taken out a coach. Like Bill Belichick tears his ACL, he can no longer coach again. That's how we doing it now.
All right, Quincy Carrier and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, how do we judge Kevin Stefanski for the upcoming season? Sports for CLE. I'll be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns with Quincy Carrier, untitled, unfiltered Browns coverage. Tony Rizzo, ESPN Cleveland, talking about how to judge Kevin Stefanski's year this season.
I don't think you can have a bad record and watch him play well. I don't see it. Unless your coach blows games at the end of games with clock mismanagement and poor play calling. Then I would say, well, Watson's playing well. His stats are good, but we're not winning. I think if Watson plays well, you're going to win. And I still think Stefanski should be judged on wins and losses.
Quincy, that's fair. Judge the head coach on wins and losses. The one way Watson could play well and we could lose, or the Browns could lose, if the defense plays like it did last year.
Even if the defense played like it did last year, they just get a little bit more out the offense. They still would have won a lot more games. Just being honest with you, like the defense being bad, like teams get past that all the time. Good teams figure it out all the time, especially teams with good quarterbacks. Peyton Manning had terrible defenses at times. So yeah, it's basically like that. And whether it's fair or not with Kevin Stefanski, he's gonna be judged by wins or losses. Like I can't say whether that's fair or not, because the season hasn't happened, right? But that's how he's going to be judged. He's going to be judged off of wins and losses. The reason he's been able to keep his job the last couple of years, despite some disappointments, is because of wins and losses, right? He had 11 of them in 2020. That made you keep on to him when he had a little bit of a slump with some bad quarterback play. So that's what it's going to be with him. For better or worse, he's going to be judged off of that win-loss record, whether that's a true reflection of his ability as a coach or not. That's just how it's going to be with him.
One of the guys who figures to play a big role in how many games the Browns are able to win, Elijah Moore. Moore talked about his role with the Browns this afternoon.
I'm super excited. I feel like growing up in Florida, I was talking about this with a couple of players yesterday. We don't coach to play slot outside or inside. You coach to play receiver, so it doesn't really matter where I'm lined up. I feel like I'm kind of comfortable wherever they need me to be. And just whatever it is that they need me to do, I'm going to work my hardest to get it done. Even if I'm not good at it now, I'm going to keep working every single day to get better at it to where it becomes one of my favorite things to do.
And Quincy, that's a guy I'm very anxious to see play with Deshaun Watson. I want to see what he can do with good quarterback play. Okay, he hadn't had it the first couple of years with the Jets, unless you like Zach Wilson and Joe Flacco.
Yeah, he's somebody I think will benefit, especially from Deshaun Watson's style at quarterback play. He's somebody who really excels at double moves and being able to do a little bit extra, and needing to take a little bit of extra time. And I think Deshaun Watson's kind of the perfect fit for him. I think that it's funny, right? The Baker Mayfield and the Odell Beckham thing, that never worked. It never felt like those two pieces were compatible. I don't know if what Elijah Moore is without Deshaun Watson, but I know what Deshaun Watson has done with people before, and that seems like a great fit for those two.
Yeah, again, you never know until they get on the field. But I certainly could see it being a big-time combo. All right. I know you've addressed this on your show. Do the Browns finally have multiple ways they can beat a team?
Yeah, they do, right? Offensively, defensively, I think they are a flexible team now, right? Whereas last year, they knew in order to win football games, they had to slow the pace down of the game, but pretty substantially in order to kind of keep up, because they could only score but so much because it took them so long to score. Now that you feel like you could be more of a quick strike team, now that you feel like you could be a team that can squeeze the game out with the run game, or you could do a little bit of a balance thing there, or you feel like you can win defensively, right? If that's how good the defense can be, you have multiple ways to win. And when you have multiple ways to win, or at least the more ways you have to win, the less ways you have to lose.
Let me ask you this. Do you think the fact that they were, I guess limited would be a good word, last year, did that affect the way you think Kevin Stefanski approached fourth downs and the offense and those kind of things that he got criticized in game for?
I mean, yeah, I think there's going to be some things that he throws in there, but I think he's basically, like, the offense is still going to look pretty similar to what it did last year. I think there's going to be some wrinkles on it. There are going to be things in the passing game that are going to be more comfortable for Deshaun Watson. But in order for this team to be at its best, I think you need Kevin to be able to play his game, and you need Deshaun to be able to play his game.
Let's kind of tweak our attention to the running back room. Obviously, Nick Chubb, by all accounts, one of the top running backs in the NFL. Is he enough in the running back room, or do you think they need to add to that?
I think they're fine. I think they're fine in the running back room. You got to find out what you have in some of these younger guys too, before you throw some Band-Aids at it. So, like, you got to see what happens with Jerome Ford. Obviously, we know what Nick Chubb is. We know that Nick Chubb's solid. We know that Nick Chubb's going to be solid until he's not. But you have to see what you have in Jerome Ford. Maybe you want to take an extended look at Demetric Felton, right? I know a lot of us will feel more comfortable if we went out there and got the quick fixes that we're going to feel good about because we know who these players are. But you got to give the young guys a chance to be able to win these roles, play in these roles, or else you're never going to develop young talent. And when you don't develop young talent, your payroll gets really, really expensive.
At running back, would you wait to see what happens cut down day? It's the same thing with defensive tackle. They don't play a game, and it's not like a receiver or, your skill set in running backs or defensive tackles translates pretty easily from team to team.
Yeah, I mean, like, if there's somebody that piques their interest that they thought was a pretty high draft option for them that hits the waiver wire, I think they'll go about it that way, or especially if they're still within their rookie deal. But I don't think that they're going to be out there hunting for new running backs or anything like that. I think they're going to try to just see what they have here, get the most out of what they have. If they feel like they need to swap out somebody on that third team, they can. But I don't think this is going to be we need to find somebody to back up Nick Chubb search.
Quincy Carrier and I are going to step aside, take one more time out. Other side of the break, who will be the Browns MVP in 2023? Sports4CLE, we'll be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
We continue talking Browns with Quincy Carrier from Untitled, Unfiltered Browns coverage. Jason McIntyre from The Herd with Colin Cowherd, talking about AFC teams and putting them into tiers. He explains why he has the Browns as a Tier 3 team.
Cleveland is the team that's a bit confounding. 9.5 is their Vegas win total. So Vegas sees something that I don't. They feel a little Ramsey from the year the Rams won the Super Bowl, when the Rams were very top-heavy and they had no injuries. Great offensive line, quarterback, skill position guys. If you look at the the Browns depth chart, not a lot of depth. They just have top-end talent that's good, but if they suffer any injuries, there's like not a lot of room where they'll be good.
Quincy, that surprises me. I thought they actually have a lot more depth than they have the last 2 years when people have had them with higher win totals.
Yeah, this is the difference between having depth because you know who these players are and not thinking they have depth because you don't recognize any of these players, right? I think that's probably what's going on there, because I don't think many people who are close to the Browns or at least like know of the people on the Browns roster would describe them quite that way. That was a little shocking to me to hear that description of it, because at some positions you can certainly do that, right? Maybe you could do that with edge, maybe you could do that with defensive tackle, and certainly a linebacker, right? But you can't really say that with corner, safety. You could say it with running back, but not the offensive line. You can not really say that with the wide receivers or the tight end. So I just think this was a case of maybe he just doesn't know the names below the starters on the roster and confuse that with the lack of depth versus, what it actually is. I don't think the Browns are the deepest team in the NFL, but I wouldn't describe them as Jason did.
No, and I would also say that, defensive tackle, they have a whole lot more depth. They still need more, but there's a lot more depth than there was a season ago. Same thing at cornerback. And again, okay, if you want to say that, I get it. All right, this is interesting. CBSSports.com predicting the 2023 MVPs for every AFC team. For the Browns, they say Deshaun Watson. Watson showed some flashes of his former self throughout his 6 starts last year, and now with a full season to prepare, it wouldn't be too surprising to see him reestablish himself among the elite quarterbacks in the conference. After all, he is still only 27. Quincy, if he's the MVP of the Browns, so he's going to play better than Nick Chubb and he's going to play better than Myles Garrett, they're going far in the playoffs.
Yeah, if we're saying that Deshaun Watson is the best player on the team come January, then this is a team that could win the Super Bowl. That's just the truth about it, right? So if that's the position he's ready to be in, and look, he's not looked like he's not on the track to do that this year. We'll see what happens. Again, practice is different from actually playing the game, but everything that we have had access to and been available to so far shows us that he looks much more like the guy we saw in 2020 and 2019 and 2018 than he did the last 6 games last year. So yeah, I would be fairly confident in that, and I think a lot of people who are just being able to tune in and watch some of this stuff are starting to get fairly confident in that as well.
So here, that brings up the question. When was the last time you think the Browns' best player was their quarterback? It certainly hadn't been since 1999, has it? When they came back.
No, it's never, like, if we're talking like a whole season.
Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't Derek Carr that one year. I mean, not Derek Carr, Derek Anderson that one year. Then you go all the way back. Tim Couch was never the best player on the team. I mean, like, you would have to tell me if Bernie was ever considered the best player on one of those teams, or was it Mack and Biner?
Yeah. Probably Bernie or Brian Sipe, maybe.
Brian Sipe won the MVP in, 80?
Yeah.
So maybe it was the Sipe year. Maybe it could do one of the Bernie years. But,
well,
I mean, it's been a long time.
And what do teams that have gone or go to the Super Bowl 95% of the time have? Quarterback is their best player.
Player is usually the quarterback, right?
Yeah. All right, we've solved that mystery. This is from the Bleacher Report, NFL Power Rankings. They have the Chiefs 1, the Bengals 2, the Eagles 3. They have the Browns checking in at 13. Browns have made the playoffs only twice since rejoining the NFL in 1999. It's not a matter of if something is going to go wrong for them. It's more a matter of when. Okay. You want to say that? That's fine. 13 seems a little low, but the AFC is loaded.
I don't have a problem with the ranking. I have the problem with the explanation with the ranking because, like, let's call that out for what it is. It's lazy. You're not making a single argument about what that team is right now, what they have on the roster, what you think justifies them not being above or being below a certain ranking. You're not making an actual football argument there. You're saying, LOL, it's the Browns. That's incredibly lazy. If you're going to put any team at a ranking, at least do the due diligence of explaining it in the context of the season that you're ranking it off of, not in the context of the whole franchise, right? Or else I could put the Chargers at like 14. LOL, it's the Chargers. They never do anything. Or how about the Jets? Let me put them at 30. LOL, it's the Jets. You know, it's lazy when people kind of justify their takes like that. So I don't mind the take. I don't care if you want to rank the Browns 31, but if you're going to describe it, please describe in context what you are ranking. Don't just say, oh, this team has bad history, so there's where I'm putting them.
Before I let you go, this is from the Game Day NFL tweeting this out. Most intelligent fan bases, according to the infamous gambler.com, the Browns are number 2. Bills number 1, Browns 2, Bucks 3, Chiefs 4, Packers 5. There you go. An intelligent fan base.
They must have not did this survey on Twitter. I'm just kidding, Browns fans. I'm just kidding. But you notice we didn't see the Bengals up there. And you know what? That's justified.
Yeah. Packers at 5. I mean, again, the argument I would make about the Browns fan base.
What metric do you measure this at, though? Like, how do you figure this out? Do you get, like, is there a quiz that they make football fans take? And then, like, do you get a grade? Like, are they doing that? Like, how are we determining this?
Yeah, you got me. But I would say this about the fan base. The Bills have been successful. The Chiefs have been successful. The Buccaneers had Tom Brady for some time. You know, the Packers have been successful. The Browns fan base hasn't had a whole lot to cheer about since 1999 when they came back.
But you know what, Dave? We always got something to talk about, and that helps, right? Like, sure, nothing to cheer about, but always something to talk about.
Yeah, without question. Quincy Carrier, is always great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight, Quincy. Thanks very much.
No problem. You have a good one.
Quincy Carrier, make sure you check him out. Untitled, unfiltered Browns coverage. Always good stuff. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, Jackson McCurry joins us. We'll hear Kevin Stefanski talking about Elijah Moore. Sports4CLE. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Try C, where futures begin.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
I am powerful beyond my wildest imagination.
I will define my future.
I will keep challenging myself to improve.
Because I am a future leader of this great nation.
I will be responsible for raising a beautiful family.
And educating not only my generation, but many more to come.
I will make a difference in my community.
And I will stand up for what I believe in.
I will not settle for simply chasing my dreams, I will achieve them.
Because I was given a chance.
An opportunity.
A home.
At Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America.
The ultimate leadership experience.
FCCLA has been one of the greatest experiences of my life.
It's made me who I am today.
Join us. We'll build a new future together.
We continue talking Browns here on Sports for CLE. Earlier this afternoon, Kevin Stefanski talked about what he has seen so far from the newly acquired Elijah Moore.
In order to be versatile, you got to line up all over the place. So I'd tell you just intelligence, first of all. With some of our players, the more you can do, we're going to do it for you, but you got to be able to line up, and you got to be able to, hey, you're playing the X this play, and then you're playing the Z the next play. So that in of itself is a high bar to clear, and he's great at that. And then physically, I mean, you guys see he's both quick, he's fast, he's got very, very, very strong hands. He's competitive. There's the versatility piece of where he can line up, but just the different jobs he can do because of his skill set just is impressive.
When he runs routes out of the backfield, are those essentially green hunt routes, or are they something entirely new to your playbook?
It's a little, yeah, I wouldn't define it as I wouldn't call it like a specific set of running back routes. I think there's, as you know, there's 1,000 things you can do coming out of the backfield. We have great runners to do that. You could put Elijah back there if the matchups dictate, but he's somebody that we really do see positionless in that you can line him up outside the numbers, inside the numbers, really no limit to where you can line him up.
Let's welcome in Jackson McCurry from the Dawgland podcast. Jackson, what that last part of that tells you is they're looking for places that they can exploit matchups with Elijah Moore.
Yeah, I mean, the first time we saw it during minicamp, him coming out of the backfield, reminded me of what San Francisco does with Deebo Samuel. You can line him up anywhere, and he can make plays. And I think that's the hope that the Browns have in Elijah Moore, and that's why they made the trade to bring him here. I'm really excited to see how they're going to utilize him. This guy's been great from his time in Ole Miss, his rookie year with the Jets. Obviously, last year he took a step back, but the Browns have big expectations and big plans for him, and it seems like he's got great chemistry with Deshaun Watson already. So very excited to see what Elijah's going to bring to the table this year.
I know you've written an article, 5 Browns poised for a breakout season in 2023. This is from North Coast Sports. One of the guys on there, Elijah Moore, wide receiver. Also, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, linebacker. Grant Delpit in the secondary. Our running back 2, Jerome Ford, and Jordan Elliott. Take us through a couple of those, why you think these guys are kind of primed to have breakout seasons.
Yeah, I mean, let's focus on the defensive guys. I think Jim Schwartz is really going to enhance some of the talented players Andrew Berry has drafted over the couple years as GM. Jordan Elliott, I had some people saying, why did you put him on this list? He hasn't done anything. I really think that the coaching staff held Jordan Elliott back. I mean, last year he had over 20 pressures, couldn't really bring it all together, but I think with a better coaching staff, I think, and this is going to be a contract year, so he's going to be even more motivated. I think Elliott could break out in Schwartz's defense. He seems to have a knack for getting the best out of defensive linemen. And I also think JOK can really benefit from this system. David Long is a guy that's comparable to JOK, and Schwartz was on the staff in Tennessee, and Long had a really good year and got a good free agent deal this offseason. So I think JOK can do that, and I think he is perfect, I think, for what Schwartz wants to do in that linebacker room. And if he can stay healthy, I think JOK can definitely finally break out on this defense this year.
Delpit is another guy kind of entering that contract year, if you will. Remember, second-round pick, so he doesn't have the option.
Yeah, I mean, last year we finally got to see him at full health, had over 100 tackles, had 4 interceptions, and now he's in he's a contract year. He's going to be used more as that box safety now that John Johnson's out of the way. Great mentors in that room, and Juan Thornhill and Rodney McLeod. I just think Delpit showed us what he can do in 2022 and now in 2023. It would not shock me if he's one of the top safeties in the league by the end of the year.
What about Ford? Ford's the guy that he's going to get every opportunity to claim a role, be it maybe the Kareem Hunt role, but the guy that gives Nick Chubb a breather when he's needed.
Yeah, I mean, he showed it in Cincinnati, didn't really get a lot of carries last year, but Andrew Berry had high praise for him and said that the competition and the running back room was behind Jerome Ford. So it seems like he's all but locked into being the second running back. I loved him coming out of the draft, thought he could really be a solid number 2 to Nick Chubb once Kareem Hunt was out of the room. But yeah, I mean, they're going to give him every opportunity to succeed here, and he's got the talent to do so. It's just a matter of going out on the field and executing.
So we've talked a little bit about Elijah Moore, and Moore again met with the media today, talked about building that chemistry with the quarterback, Deshaun Watson.
We're day by day. We didn't play no game yet. You see what I'm saying? We're just practicing out here. We're doing our 1%. Like he always says, the work gonna come first. So we're just focused on that. The connection is gonna build as days go on. We're gonna have our days where it's not. It's gonna have our days where it is. But we're gonna try to have more days where it is than it's not.
And Jackson, the one thing that Elijah Moore gives a quarterback, because of his speed, because of his quickness, he's a guy that defenses play off of. Deshaun Watson sees that. He's going to take the 4 easy yards. And if Moore's able to break a tackle, it becomes 20 or 40.
Yeah, when you have the speed and elusiveness that Elijah Moore has, like you said, you take those 4 yards and he can turn them into 24 yards or 44 yards or whatever. I mean, you have to take that. And I think that's going to happen with a lot of guys on this offensive side of the ball because we have so much talent there. It's hard for defenses to hone in on just one guy. You can't double up Amari Cooper, can't double up Donovan Peoples-Jones or David Njoku. You have to watch for what Elijah Moore does, whether he's like Stefanski said, whether he's in the Z, the X, or even coming out of the backfield. It's hard to contain a guy like that you move all along that offense. And I think that's what's so good about here that coming into 2023 is there's so many weapons and so many options for Deshaun Watson that you can't really expect him to fail. And it's all on him at this point. But with the array of talent he has, you would have to think he is going to succeed here.
The other thing to keep in mind, Moore could be that guy that becomes the scramble guy with Deshaun Watson. Watson will extend plays. Moore can get behind and lose defenders. And if those two develop that chemistry on the run, he could end up putting some huge numbers up receiving.
Oh, for sure. I mean, like you said, if Watson extends the pocket or extends a play with his legs, Elijah Moore could, create his own route, kind of improvise and make himself open to where Watson's on the run. He just flings the ball 20 yards downfield and Moore's uncovered, and he could turn it into a huge play. Like, the possibilities are endless when you have a mobile quarterback like Deshaun Watson.
So Marquise Goodwin sideline, we're not sure when he will be back. You certainly hope, whenever you hear blood clots, lungs, and legs, you're concerned. They think they got it and that he will be able to come back. Having said that, who do you think can seize the opportunity at wide receiver? I know you've written an article again for North Coast Sports on this, so take us through that article.
Yeah, it's definitely wide open right now. I mentioned, Jakeem Grant, Dalen Baldwin, Jalen Darden, and Mike Harley Jr. Now, of course, Harley Jr. Left practice early today with the trainer. Jakeem Grant's still coming back from the Achilles injury. So right now, you would have to think it's Jalen Darden or Dalen Baldwin if Marquise Goodwin, unfortunately, can't come back to the football field. So, Jalen Darden's kind of in that Marquise Goodwin mold. He's got the speed. He hasn't shown much at wide receiver, but has shown the ability on special teams as a return man. And then Dalen Baldwin's kind of in that mold of a Donovan Peoples-Jones. Doesn't have the speed, but has the size to go be potentially a vertical threat. He came into the active roster last year against Baltimore. Watson targeted him twice for 25 yards, so he has trust in Baldwin. So we'll see what happens throughout training camp. Maybe they bring in somebody. They brought in Austin Watkins last week, who is Sammy Watkins' cousin, and maybe he emerges once we get out on the field for the preseason games. But if Goodwin can't go, that 6 wide receiver spot, I think, is completely wide open at this point.
Jackson McCurry from the Dawgland podcast and I are going to step aside, take a quick timeout. Other side of the break, we'll hear from Kevin Stefanski what Anthony Walker brings to this team as he returns from injury. Sports4CLE, we'll be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
We continue talking Browns with Jackson McCurry from the Dawgland podcast. Well, Anthony Walker injured early last year, missed most of the season. Browns run defense really missed him when he was gone. Kevin Stefanski talked about what Anthony Walker brings to this defense this year.
Intangibles, hard to describe, obviously, but his presence is felt really throughout the building, meeting rooms, weight room, on the field. He's a pro's pro, and just with his career and what he's been able to accomplish and plays at a high level and then provides great leadership off the field.
With that, Kevin, he's been around for a while, and you have a serious injury like that. What does it say about a guy to say, I'm committed to coming back and continuing to do this?
Yeah, I'll tell you what, it's hard when you're injured and you're out of it. It's so easy to feel like you're away from the team, and that was never where AWalk was, even while dealing with the injury last year. And then to come back, we were so excited that we were able to bring him back because, I think he represents a lot of what we are.
And Jackson and I alluded to it going into that. The Browns' run defense wasn't great when he was in there, but it took a noticeable step back without him. And we heard earlier in the show, he's excited to play for Jim Schwartz and this style.
Yeah, definitely. I think the whole defense is excited about the possibilities of what Jim Schwartz's defense brings to the table. And yeah, Walker is one of those great leaders on the defensive side of the ball. And, when he got hurt last year, it definitely was noticeable how much, the run defense and the entire defense overall took a nosedive once he got hurt and was out for the rest of the year. It's definitely glad to have him back. The fact that him and Taki are out on the field already during the early portion of training camp was a surprise to me. I did not expect them to be out that quickly, but it's great. Medical science has come a long way, but yeah, he definitely brings an impact to that team, both on the field and in the locker room, and it's great to have him back out there.
Yeah, it's definitely a good sign. We've been tracking a story out of Cincinnati. Joe Burrow left practice. So Ian Rappaport tweets this out. Zach Taylor is telling reporters Joe Burrow suffered a calf strain. Much better news than the several alternatives. Have to imagine takes him off the field for preseason, to be determined on a time frame of how much time he will miss. But again, anytime you're dealing with non-contact, and we saw that seems to be a better outcome for Joe Burrow and the Bengals than, as Ian Rappaport said, than the alternatives.
Yeah, definitely. It was definitely very interesting that he already had a sleeve on that calf, and we obviously need to wait for the MRIs to see the degree of the calf strain. But yeah, I mean, the video did not look pretty on initial looks. You know, seeing him get carted off and then watching the play evolve. But yeah, you hope Burrow doesn't go down. I mean, you know, there's some fans that are going to cheer for that, but no. Yeah, Burrow's one of the top quarterbacks in the league, and you know, to be the best, you got to beat the best. And I'd rather beat the Bengals at full strength than, you know, to have Bengal fans have excuses if Burrow wasn't out there. So hopefully it's not a serious injury, and hopefully he'll be back out there in time for the season opener against the Browns.
All right, this is 5 free agents that make sense for the Browns, an article, again, that you've wrote for North Coast Sports. Guy we've talked about a lot, Matt Ioannidis, defensive tackle. A running back that we have actually talked about, Darrell Henderson, played for the Rams, was successful when given the opportunity. Linebacker Reggie Ragland showed up with the Browns late in the year last year. Ndama Kansu, defensive tackle, does have some ties to Jim Schwartz. And Rashaan Evans, linebacker. Do you think any of these are likely? Which one do you think makes the most sense? Who do you think could be the most likely for the Browns to sign?
Well, I mean, the defensive tackle room, it seems like they're going with what they have right now. It still amazes me Ioannidis is still out on the market. If I had to predict, just because we lost Matthew Adams here with a calf injury and be out a couple weeks, maybe they look to linebacker, bringing in somebody like a Reggie Ragland or Rashaan Evans, like I mentioned in the article. I'm still wondering, do they bring in another D tackle? Maybe when they get back from Greenbrier, they assess what they have and consider free agent options. But linebacker seems to make the most sense because obviously Taki and Anthony Walker might be a slow return back to the field completely. So they do need depth at the linebacker position. So I think those two options that I mentioned make the most sense right now.
The other thing to keep an eye on, Adams is a guy that huge special teams guy. So they may look for a younger guy that Bubba Ventrone knows can play special teams and be a factor on that side of the ball, that aspect of it. All right, 5 Browns on the roster bubble. Again, this is another article that you wrote. Take us through, we'll give you the names. So Jakeem Grant, wide receiver and kick returner. Nick Harris, center, has played a couple of snaps at guard. Anthony Schwartz, wide receiver. A.J. Green, cornerback. And Tony Fields, linebacker. So some of those guys are draft picks of Andrew Berry, which he's been very hesitant to cut. I get that. If you draft a guy, you want to give him every opportunity to develop. Who of this do you think makes sense to potentially make the team, either of those 5?
A.J. Green makes sense just because he's been in the secondary, been solid when called upon, except, you know, last year he took a slight step back, but he's always provided good depth. I think Tony Fields is in the mix at linebacker to make the team. It is a crowded room, so it'll be interesting to see what he puts on tape during the preseason. You know, Nick Harris, he still could make the team. I mean, Luke Whippler was a 7th-round pick. He's not an automatic lock, even though he was a draft pick, much like Harris, but he could still make it. He can beat out Whippler in camp and in the preseason. And then Jakeem Grant makes more sense to make the roster at wide receiver than Anthony Schwartz, both returning from injuries. Schwartz just got back on the practice field today, and I just don't see a clear path for him. But Jakeem Grant can be that guy that fills the Marquise Goodwin void in terms of speed and, you know, being that situational gadget type guy. He showed it in Chicago and in Miami. But, you know, there's 4 out of the 5 that could make the roster. And Anthony Schwartz is still the odd man out, unfortunately. And I was very high on him coming out of Auburn in 2021, but he just can't seem to form any sort of consistency. It's been more inconsistency than anything with Shorts.
Yeah, Grant makes a lot of sense to me because of his return. Remember, he's an all-pro punt returner. And again, he's at the age where coming back from the Achilles injury, if he's back all the way, he kind of solves some problems on special teams.
Yeah, he definitely does. I mean, kick returns, I mean, the rules changes, so that kind of wipes it out. But you're right. He does have all-pro abilities in the punt return game. I know Donovan Peoples-Jones was still getting the first-team reps there during the early portion of camp. You know, we don't know how Grant is physically. Obviously, you know, Grant Delpit didn't get back to full strength until last year after he suffered his Achilles injury, his rookie season. But Grant's 30 years old, like you said. And he also took a pay cut to stay with the team, and he has no guaranteed money. So he's not safe, but with the special teams ability, you would have to think if he shows anything in preseason, Bubba Ventrone might pound the table to say, we have to find a way to keep him on the roster.
Jackson McCurry from the Dawgland podcast. As always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Jackson.
Thank you, Dave. Have a good night, man.
All right, Jackson McCurry, make sure you check him out. The Dawgland podcast, always interesting and good Browns coverage. It's going to do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. We'll see you back here tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Have a great night, everybody. See you tomorrow at 4 on Sports for CLE.